name's Mary, and I'm the director for the BSN program in the College of Nursing, and it's a 3-semester program for people who are already nurses with their ADN degrees, and now they want their BSN as a springboard for other programs.
I'm Kelley Stricklin. I'm the director of the TAP program, which is the Teacher Assistant Program. It's an online program that we started specifically for teacher assistants that are in the, speak louder, man, I feel like I'm shouting. Teacher assistants that are in the classroom and want to get their elementary ed degree. So they take all their courses online and they do all their field work in the classes where they teacher assist.
We're really happy to be introducing this topic today. And as Kelley and I were talking about it, the first question we had was, what makes our courses face-to-face, IBN, or online more human? And I think that's the starting point. And so we wanted to throw that idea out to you first. What makes your course human? You can eat with, you can talk with your
Accessibility.
Okay.
Accessibility.
Accessibility.
Relating things to their life or your life.
So there's a point of reference and you start establishing a relationship.
More student-instructor communication.
Communication is really important. So as we go through, we have to ask ourselves as teachers, what makes our courses meaningful and human? Because I think they are one and the same. And so we have a couple of ideas that we wanted to share with you today. Move our slides. So what we do know is online can be a very lonely experience for students, but it doesn't have to be. And so that's what we want to talk a little bit about today.
Okay, so because it's such a lonely experience, what are some things that we can do to relieve student stress? And these were just some of our ideas. Having a standardized syllabi so that in whatever field that they're taking, it looks the same for every course that they're taking. And to have a standardized list of due dates so that they know where to find that in the course shell. If you can get together with your colleagues who all teach in your department online and standardize the syllabus and have it in a specific place, and standardize due dates and have it in a specific place. That way they're not searching all over for every course that they're taking. The same thing with the course materials. We like to include objectives so that they know what to expect for that week. These are the things that you're going to learn. And then the learning materials follow that. The same thing with the assignment due dates, important due dates, and another tip is to open up a lot or all of the assignments at the beginning of the semester. That way the students can turn them in and work at their own pace. A lot of them are really stressed when they have a due date. A lot of assignments due in the same week from all the different instructors, because usually online students work full-time, have families, and they like to work, when it's convenient for them. And then always adhere to the 24-hour rule, so always respond back to them. If they're working on assignments, it's very frustrating and stressful to them not to get an answer immediately. So make yourself available through the different methods that we're going to.
And I'm going to bring this home to our BSN students. They work 4 12-hour shifts a week, 1 week, and then they might work 5, or they can work 3 another. So they're working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's so important to know when your students are available. My office hours are from 8 a.m. when the night shift gets off to 10 p.m. at night, because that's when another group of students call. So in self-introductions, it's really important that you know if your students work night shifts so that you don't call them in their peak sleep time. So I have a list of who works nights, and I try not to call them even on their off days because that's still their sleep pattern. The other thing in terms of standardizing syllabi, it's just good practice across different programs. But the assignment due date is where all of the faculty that are teaching those students during that semester will get together and say, I'll take Mondays, you take Wednesdays, somebody else says I'll take Fridays. And those are the only days they give assignments to students. And the reason for that is that students then know when they take health assessment, that's all they have to focus on. They don't have to think about multiple assignments due on the same day. And that's a stress reliever for students. Opening assignments, I don't know how you feel about that. Are you okay with opening up some of your assignments so they can complete them at their pace? Especially if you have people who are juggling families, work, whatever, they like to be able to work at their own pace. And so that's something that's really, really helpful. In the College of Nursing, we've established the best practices for online courses, and I would recommend that you also look at the online courses that LEC has created. They are really helpful. Any questions on this?
Mary,
Yeah.
that 24-hour ruling responding to messages, does that go on weekends too?
No, because for me, what I say to students is, when you take a class with me, here are my office hours, which will be through text or phone call, whatever, or collaborate if they want. But I have such a wide range during the day that I really try to keep weekends free. They know that there's not a lot of reception out of Cat Island, and I go there on weekends. For our other faculty members, they'll stay 48 hours. And weekends, we play by ear. Sometimes I check it, sometimes I don't.
On my syllabi, I stress that I will answer emails between 9 and 4 a.m., 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. daily, Mondays through Fridays. And if you email me after that, I'll answer you the next morning unless it's a weekend, in which I will answer you Monday. So that they know that on Saturday and Sunday, don't expect an instant response.
I think part of it is students also just knowing when you are available and when you are not available.
Right, but as long as they know what to expect, they adapt to it. Like, I know that a lot of my students who work all week do their assignments on Sunday, so I try to be available on Sunday afternoon for them. And that's just my personal, what I do, because I know they have a lot of questions. So I'm never available on Saturdays, so I'm always busy doing things with my kids. Just to let them know what to expect.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. So a lot of times students online may not have had the opportunity to come here face to face and go through an orientation, or so screenshot whatever you can. And Jing is a great way to a free download that if something is a complicated multi-part step process, you may want to just screenshot so that the students can follow that if they want. And this is just a little explanation of what Jing does. It captures information verbatim, exactly how it looks on the screen.
And just as an aside, it's wonderful to use with advising too. When you have students, who you're advising and they can't figure out what to do in school, to make a screenshot of exactly what you're talking about, take them step by step. Okay, this is what we do in CISC with all of our courses. We have a module set up by weeks, and so the students see the exact same thing in every single course. And in every single module, we start that week off with our objectives for the week. And then we go into our learning materials and PowerPoints and all that. And then we have an assignment Dropbox for whatever's due that week. And I think there's an example. And here's and that's just an example of how it looks. When they click on week 2, it has the date there to clarify that they are in the right place. And then it has an introduction, which is an overview of what they're going to learn that week, and it has specific objectives, and then it lists exactly the tasks that they need to do. And our students really appreciate the cut and dry, the step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what I need to do.
And some people think that might be boring, but for a student, that's solace. It's that I don't have to figure out what the playground looks like, because I know where those toys are going to be. And this is an example of Jing too, is you can give messages to students. You can write over it and put arrows in if there's a couple things that they need to do. In my classes, I have the Wailing Wall. And I have 2 things. I have the Wailing Wall and I have the Wisdom Wall. And the Wailing Wall is a place where on the discussion board, if students have questions, if one student has a question, probably somebody else has it as well, right? So the Wailing Wall is a place where you can go and you can, the benefit for the faculty member is that everybody gets the response. And there has to be equity in online courses as well, is that you just don't share that information with one student. So the Wailing Wall and students, like right now my students are doing YouTube videos, doing health assessments of themselves with an unwilling family member, and they're going through the procedure of that. But sometimes that YouTube video, uploading it, things like they can wail on the wall and pray that someone will respond. Obviously, I will respond, but students are wonderful teachers. And so they'll tell other students, well, how to resolve that. The Wisdom Wall is something that I put up towards the end of the course. And it's really for students to reflect on their own learning. But I also can share that if I teach that course again, I can share with students about what other students think. And most of that is all in voice. If they want to type their response, they can. If they want to voice record it, they can. And we'll go through that in a little bit. So those are, I also learned on the Wailing Wall that I had put assignments, 2 assignments that were kind of tough, too close together. Well, that was the last time I did that. Because faculty learn from the Wailing Wall as well. Here are some strategies, and we'll go back and forth on these. I'll start with the first one is call your online students the first week of the semester, and you say, oh my God, that's going to take forever. And it takes some time. I can get it done within a day. I can leave messages for the student. I welcome them to the university, or welcome them back to the university. I welcome them to my course. I usually say, this is Dr. Coyne, I want to welcome you personally to this course. I'm looking forward to working with you this semester. Here's my phone number, which they all have because of orientation, but I repeat it anyway. And I go after the myth that there's not a real teacher in online courses. And that's where we need to demythologize. And so how I do it is say, fortunately for you, as I took an online course, and I really didn't think there was a real life human being at the other end. And so I'm disproving that for you. And so you can call, and you know what? The invitation is it's one-to-one. It's personal. Even if you have to leave that on a message for the student. this is when my office hours are. Call if you need help. I try to make it as personal, and it probably takes all of 2 minutes to leave that message. If there's something I know they're going to struggle with, like right now they're struggling with the YouTube videos, is get it that early and make sure you don't have any problems with it. Even if this is a student I have the next semester, I still call them. I always call the students that I worry about. Worry about it because they change their writing, they change. I know my online students far better than I ever knew face-to-face students. And I was really good face-to-face. But it's possible, but it takes some work.
Did you want to say something?
I have 30 right now in a course.
And it varies. It's right now they're kind of small for the well, but it goes up to 30.
So if you have more, then you have to allot more time.
And I have to say that, I always tell my teacher candidates, call your parents and, get them the first week and tell them something positive about their kid, because then they're on your side the whole year. And we have to practice what we preach, If we just give them a short phone call, they're like, wow, that teacher really cares about me. They took the time to call. So I think it's really important.
The next is put their cell phones in their names, because there's nothing like somebody picking up the phone and saying, okay, Brittany, good to talk with you. It also alerts you, okay, this is from this course. I might put course numbers in if I'm teaching multiple courses. Then, yes?
When you call parents, do you, in the course of that introductory conversation, also educate them that you will not be able to tell them how their kid's doing during the, if they want to call and say, hey, how's my kid doing? That FERPA does not allow you to do that? Do you advise them of that?
I haven't actually been in the classroom for 15 years, so that wasn't an issue that, when I was in the
Oh, I
classroom.
see, okay.
But I tell my teacher candidates to do that. I absolutely tell my teacher candidates to
Student
do
teachers,
that.
so her students call
Call their,
parents of their students, and they're
Oh,
teaching.
I got you, I got you. I'm sorry.
so
Misunderstood.
it's not the.
Yeah, misunderstood.
Right.
Personalize every contact you have with an online student, even if it's in messages, call them by name. I keep folders in messages so that I know the communication I've had back and forth, but it's a good archive for me. But even when I text, it's annoying, but I'll try to put their name, always use their name, their first names or whatever they prefer.
And in the assignment feedback too, I always start with their name, and then I would say something positive that I can see about that assignment, and then we go into the nitty-gritty, they need to bring. We've already talked about our office.
We've talked about office hours already.
Okay, this is, you always want to engage them early and let them get to know each other so they know there's a community of support within that course. And so a lot of instructors use a self-introduction where it's just in the discussion board and you have them tell as much or as little about themselves as they're comfortable, but also their contact information. It's always best to do your own introduction first. That's the first thing they see when they pull up that discussion. Here's me, and here's about me. And so they get to know me, I get to know them, and they share pertinent information that you can keep, in a file. I always jot notes about each student so that when they do call, I can just pull up the notes.
You can put pictures in there in the self-introduction, that you can build it so that anytime a student's assignment comes in, their picture also comes up with the light.
And I think that's the next slide.
Yeah. And this is how you do it.
That's just how you do it. There's in the discussion, they can just click on the insert image and they can insert a picture of themselves. And there's lots of different things that you can do with the introduction too. And
I always print mine off, and as I go through a course, I'll jot down, like somebody's father. I have one student whose father is in the hospital, very critically ill. I want to remember that as I talk with that student. I want to remember that first thing with that student. I have another student who's in California because her uncle, aunt, and 8-year-old nephew were killed in a car accident. And I mean, that's blazoned in my head. But other students, there's dilemmas that they go through that you just want to jot down. So, and if you print out your self-introduction, that's a really good way of just keeping a running tab of what's going on with your students throughout the semester. That may have nothing to do with the course, but it has everything to do with their lives.
That's just my example of the finished product. I uploaded a picture with my whole family because we always spend time together. That's us all the way to Gulf Shores, and then I just stated a little bit about myself.
Here's some ways of using digital icebreakers at the beginning of a course. Students, you do this one.
Oh, it's a cute thing that we do. It's they have to create a license plate within that discussion after they introduce themselves, and they create a license plate that describes their personality or describes their life. Mine is RTG, DTR. Anybody take a guess? I teach reading. It's reading doctor because I go into the schools and volunteer and diagnose reading problems. So that's my real license plate. Let's see, another thing, you can quote down with a missing word, and then everybody supplies words and has a discussion about, what word best fits in there. I love the idea of a scavenger hunt to get to know Blackboard, especially if you have, a student new to Blackboard. That's always fun for them. And then to set up interviews. You can go ahead and talk about that one.
I do both of the scavenger hunt. This is a really good way to make sure that at the very onset of a course that somebody can maneuver through it. Where are the Dropboxes, checking messages, because students want that security of knowing they shouldn't be struggling with the format. They should be struggling with engaging in the knowledge. The other is interviewing one another. I have students who have to interview patients all the time. They can interview one another at the beginning of the course. They can also use that to discuss things later on as the course progresses. So digital icebreakers, I hate stuff like icebreakers, but I know they're important. Obviously, I'm going to be much more functional in the scavenger hunt, and I've got to think about being more human with my students. Engagement throughout the course, feedback. Who doesn't want feedback? And personalize that feedback. Use Collaborate. Use voice threads, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Use audio and messages. Use audio and grading. Use Skype, FaceTime. If something doesn't make sense, if a student you were teaching face-to-face, you'd say, hey, come on, let me come to my office and let me talk with you. You have to have that same mentality needs to be incorporated into online courses. If it doesn't make sense face-to-face, it doesn't make sense. Things don't make sense online either.
And I just wanted to say too that if you're grading assignments and you're noticing that they're doing the same mistakes and you're finding yourself, saying the same thing in several assignments, you might want to just instead of writing or responding back, do an audio message and say, okay, everybody, let's talk about this assignment and go through it. It's very helpful for them to hear your voice.
And that's a great idea. I'm going to do that in my next course. In my syllabus will be audio as well. And I'm going to build in audio in some of the things that I think are going to be difficult for students to struggle, that they'll struggle with. Anticipate, invite, and manage questions promptly. Students are great at asking for clarifications on an assignment. If one has it, several will have it, and all deserve the benefit of the answer. So promptly send a message. or announcement to all students to clarify the question response. And I always name the student who asks the questions, like, okay, Sally had a great question about this. Here's her question and here's the response.
And another thing about that, in the teaching world, we do 3 then me. And so I encourage them to ask 3 of their peers before they ask me. Because usually they can get their answer from the Wailing Wall or from the class cafe, an area that you have set up just for that. Okay, this is another option that I do occasionally when I was talking about those assignments. You know, and if you have something that it was obvious that you need to clarify some content, I do a week in review, and so it's just a little statement about, you know, this is what happened last week, and here's some tips of how you can improve, or I give kudos to students who turned in really good work. And they really appreciate that feedback as well. It goes out right in front of, remember the introduction and the objectives, it goes right in front of that. And I don't do it every week, I just do it occasionally when there needs to be clarification.
Another thing I think that we're all trying to do in our online courses is to use audio a little bit more, and also listening, and making sure that our environment is a civil environment in which we operate. And so if they have questions, you can also do a speak up, listen up. If you don't want to call it the Wailing Wall, or if you need a clarification on a concept, speak up, listen up is a good, whether they write or speak, it's helpful. Here in Blackboard, this is how you would do it if you wanted to compose a message to students. Go ahead and create the message. Go into messages, go to voices, and then you'll see the record button right below it. And you can make a notation there and say, hey, this is a clarification on X assignment. But sometimes it's easier for us if we do audio. It's more natural than typing.
It's faster.
And also, when we've, in great respect to the education department, is that people learn differently. You know, some are audio learners, some are visual learners, so you can incorporate different aspects of that. You were going to do it on discussion boards. Here's, you go, you have your forum created, you go to messages, and it's the same record button that you would utilize on the discussion board. That's really nice when students, I have students practice giving report. And so what they have to do is they have to, in a very short period of time, give a lot of information about a patient that they see when they are going off their shift. And so they practice that, and they also evaluate how well they do. What can I do differently? There's nothing better than self-evaluation. And so recording is a really great way to do that. You can create voice threads in grading assignments as well. You can go paragraph by paragraph if you want. And this is how you would do it. Given that we're going to talk a lot more in our classes, our online courses, this is a civility statement that I have in my syllabus that talks about civility. In our class, everyone is allowed to feel they can work and learn in a safe and caring environment. Everyone learns about, understands, appreciates, and respects varied races, classes, gender, physical, mental abilities, and sexualities, and everyone matters. All individuals are to be respected and treated with dignity and civility, and everyone shares the responsibility for making our class and the University of Southern Mississippi a positive and better place for learning. I go on to quote the Code of Nursing Ethics because that's an expectation that if they're not already nurses, they should have. But if you're going to do some talking, or you have any kind of scholarly dialogue, whether it's typewritten or whatever, is that people need to know the rules of civility. And so, you know, this is one way to do it. Let us joyfully practice mutual respect in our classes. And so that's
Right, and in education, we call it the teaching dispositions that we want them to exhibit. Professionalism, using professionalism in their speaking and in their writing.
This is an example of, sometimes people will pull their PowerPoints into Collaborate, and they'll voice over them. You can do it just in, there's some things that may not need a whole lot of explanation. This one,
The most common error that clinicians make in their pattern of percussion, that is tapping on the posterior chest or auscultating, listening to the posterior chest, is that they go down one side fully.
I can bored to tears to hear myself there, but, okay, this is like a common error that people make. Do you have to have voiceovers on all your slides? No, because some of it you ought to be reading and doing things like that. But things that students struggle with, it's really easy in PowerPoint to go to insert audio and flip it into a PowerPoint that is displays something that is a difficult concept for students. My only counsel to you is, I had made a bunch of these difficult concepts, putting the voiceover, but then I saved everything to a PDF, and it knocks it all out. So being, you have to keep those as a PowerPoint. That particular slide. I did. But it's easy to easy to use voiceover in your PowerPoints as well, even if you don't want to use Collaborate.
And by the way, we have copies of the PowerPoint to remind you of the directions if you'd like it. One thing that we do at the end of the semester, every semester, is give an exit survey, and it's very, very simple. The students are just asked to take a brief survey where they express what was the most helpful about the class, what did they not like about the class, and what would they change. And I have used that feedback every semester to make my online classes better and better. It's very valuable information. They're very honest in that feedback. Yeah, we did. Okay, another thing I found interesting is that if I have a student who I am just floored by their assignment, they have gone way above my high expectations, I will actually give them bonus points. And they get so excited and they want to do even better the next assignment. And then, that word kind of filters through the class, and I find everyone's doing better assignments. So it's worth those few points for me to have that motivation there. I also try to give early submission bonus points, especially if it's an assignment where they're making a video and I have to upload that video for other students to critique. So I need it as early as possible so I can get them all uploaded. And so I give early submission bonus points, not on all assignments, but on the ones that I really need to get graded. And then we already talked about the exit survey.
In conclusion, I think there's a lot of benefits for engaging the learner in learning. The word is going to get around that Southern does a great job. Increased admission, retention, graduation, professional success, and positive program reputation for Southern Miss. So I think we have a challenge before us as faculty, and that is, how do we humanize any of our courses? What does that mean? What shape does that take? And as many of us as there are that many creative ways of making courses more human. Any other ideas about how to make it human? How to humanize? What works? Or what doesn't work, so that none of us will try it? Yeah. Yes.
One of the, some of the things that I'm going to suggest, might not work perfectly. I think that's the other thing, is that you've got to humanize it in your own style. And according to the nature of the discipline and the subject itself, it's going to make a difference in how you approach it. One of the things I do is I have an iPhone. My iPhone's got email, text, voicemail. And this is a phone number I give to my students and with my email. So they know they can get me basically 24/7. Not that I necessarily will respond to them 24/7, but they have to get a hold of me when they have to get a hold of me. I'll have it and I can get back to them fairly quickly that way. Now, not everybody's going to feel comfortable doing it, okay? But it works for me.
And it works for me too. And actually, it saves you some time.
It does. It really
Because-
does save you time. The other thing is I've got, because I'm online, I've got Hattiesburg students as well as Bell Park students. And so when I go up to Hattiesburg for either departmental meetings or for lectures or whatever, I let my online students know that I'm going to be there, I'm going to be in my Hattiesburg office, and if they can, contact me at such and such a time. So I've got, like, I'm going up Friday, and I already have one student that said that she wanted to find me meeting face to face. So, doing things like that. But I mean, a lot of it is you just have to figure out your own style and then figure out how you build into that. I think. In terms of making assignments easy, and this doesn't work for everybody again, I put everything out at the beginning of the course in detail on the discussion board. So all they have to look at is basically the syllabus of the discussion board for that. They don't have to flip back and forth with links. They can just go right to that. Boom. It's all there. The links are right there. Everything. Makes it simpler for them. And I think it actually invigorates the discussion that correspondingly takes place. So I'm finding some success with that. I'm finding finally some success. I had a hard time with getting the students to engage one another. But it seems like the more I push them on that issue and they do it, then they see the benefit of it, and then they want to do it, and then they start developing relationships with one another, which is, also a humanizing factor. They feel like they're actually a part of a class then, as opposed to just a one-to-one relationship with me.
That's a point I hope that we can maybe in future teaching forums really talk about. My online courses are fully asynchronous, but in some of those courses, I do expect that there be dialogue. Whether that dialogue is asynchronous or synchronous
I set up
is something
discussion
else.
groups. They're assigned to groups.
Discussion groups work really well. I find too, like with, and I think you have to know your partner. Like mine are RMBS, and they don't give a rip that they know each other, okay? Because they get a lot of interaction. They're going to get some interaction in some classes, but there's some of them that are like physical assessment. They don't really give a rip if what somebody else feels about the stethoscope, okay, or about lung sounds. So I think you have to know that. There's some things that you dialogue about, and there's other things.
It all depends on the class.
It depends on the class, and it depends on how much you do need them to act as colleagues and dialogue, because there's got to be that within
See,
classes.
what I'm doing is the IDS courses, and one of the principles of IDS is collaboration.
Right,
So I
you-
emphasize collaboration.
right.
And I think you had a great point where you just have to make it your own, whatever you're comfortable with, extending the hours that you're comfortable with, and just, we just encourage you to try one or two things, and slide them into this semester, and then try something new next semester, and just find your niche, find what works for you.
They're great ideas that Eagle Learning on the LEC puts out, the faculty focus. I think we all get that on our, through email. Does everybody get this through email? We get it
Online,
online.
you teach online.
If you're online. You only get it if you teach online. These are great. Maybe we can send something out with this web address.
Because what we're gonna do is the PowerPoint, we're also gonna attack the PowerPoint, it's gonna be on the server with all, everything from both digital and campuses.
So if you want to digitally.
And this is, She didn't teach, we had to learn it all ourselves. This is kind of interesting to read about non-engagement, you know, people who don't engage their, hopefully the course is not amenable, I don't know. You might want to read it and see what you think about it, but